Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, Bob Przybylo here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page, a Stickball report, and a big weekend coming up.
For both of us.
For both softball and baseball. Softball, obviously, 34-1, the longest winning streak in the country all of a sudden at 16. They now opened up a 3-game lead in the Big 12 following a sweep of Kansas. And let's backtrack a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the happenings in Lawrence and some big early innings for OU softball en route to what they outscore them 40-3 over the course of the 3-game series.
Well, they had a little trouble trying to close down Saturday, so they gave up a couple runs late. But yeah, that was the story. It's jumping.
They gave up runs. They gave up runs. That's the story.
Is that they jumped out so early.
Sure.
You know, here's Kansas playing some of its best softball in ages. 7-2 in conference going in to last weekend, and when you just put up a 2-spot or 3-spot, you start hitting home. Getting those home runs in the top of the first inning. That's that intimidating force that this team can still possesses. I know the rest of college softball feels like it's getting closer and closer to catching up with the Sooners, but when they start games like they did in Lawrence, incredibly hard to beat.
You could probably highlight a number of the hitters that Oklahoma set up, but Jada Coleman's turn this week to be the National Player of the Week as well as the Big 12 Player of the Week.
Yeah, the very first batter, she was the one setting the tone the entire weekend, and we were wondering, you go back a month ago, being moved to like the 6 or 7 hole, being moved to the 9 hole. Was it a message by Patty Gasso saying, come on, Jada, we need you to wake up. You're a senior. I know you know nothing but championships, and you believe there's a light button, like a switch you can just turn on, but we need you to start playing well. And, man, has she ever during the last couple of weeks.
22-game on-base streak here over the course of the last couple of weeks as she slashed 587, 720, and 1.217, which is just – it's incredible, an incredible number to go along with the 22 on-base streak. All right, so you get through Kansas. Obviously, Oklahoma now has positioned themselves certainly atop the Big 12, certainly atop the country, just in terms of the total body of work. But this is kind of that weekend that a lot of people had talked about in terms of it's an actual, kind of lock-in type moment headed down to Austin.
It is, and especially with the Longhorns dropping 2 or 3 at OSU, now you know they're going to be fired up just as much to try to get back on track. And there's a lot of talk about that Texas offense, especially their short game. You wonder what their mentality or what their psyche is like. 2 runs in 3 games against Cowgirls, and OU's pitching is right on par with that. So very intriguing to see what Friday night looks like, what plan of attack Mike White and the Horns are going to try to give to the Sooners.
And that leads into the conversation about Kinsey Hansen. And, it was obviously a step in the right direction over the weekend in Lawrence. It seemed like they, if you want to call it minute loading or what, game management, it seemed like they gave her a little bit each time, each game. And then by Sunday, back at it. You talked to her on Tuesday. When you talk about a Texas offense and keeping the small ball and keeping them off the base pass, Kinsey Hansen's her presence at the catcher position seems to be a big deal for Oklahoma, getting her back into the fold.
Yeah, once you learn that the knee tweak wasn't going to be a season-ending type of deal, then you start wondering, okay, where can we target the return? And everyone looked toward Texas, like, man, can we get through these next couple of weeks? And Riley Ludlam did a tremendous job, which Patty and Kinsey both mentioned repeatedly Tuesday, and the trust they now have in her gives you yet another weapon as you work your way down the rest of the season. But with Kinsey being back, she was like, I was going to say I was back even if I wasn't. It's right. OU Texas. I wasn't about to miss it. But her leadership behind the plate, that's something that as much as Riley Ludlam did a great job in the last couple of weeks in improving in that regard, especially being more vocal, no one does it better than Kinsey Hansen. That's why she's one of the co-captains.
You talked to Patty Gasso on Tuesday. At 34-1, I'm sure she is getting pretty nitpicky about the stuff that she wants to see improve onto the field. What were kind of the highlights of the 20-minute conversation she had with the media?
I think they just know their defense is going to be tested this weekend and needs to be up to par. And the way that Tiara Jennings has been playing at shortstop has been very encouraging. It's something I don't think Patty was taking a shot at us, but she goes, I remember last month people were wondering if she could play shortstop.
Right.
Yes, she can. She can. This isn't going to be an issue. And she loves the Avery Hodge, Alina Torres rotation there at second base. You can't ask for anything more from that outfield position. Alyssa Brito is going to get tested, and she knows it. She's embracing it. She's looking forward to it at third. You try to play that short game. Brito's got to be money every single game.
It's going to be quite a test coming up with Texas. And as you said, with their backs against the wall, as far as pitching in the circle, it seems like a continuation of what has been for Kelly Maxwell so far.
Yeah, I mean, she was 1 out away from a no-hitter to begin last Thursday. And I thought maybe it'd go Maxwell, Kirsten Deal, Nicole May. Lately, it's been Maxwell, May, then Deal. We'll see if anything changes here going into this type of environment, which might be the only one of the entire season where they're being cheered again.
Yeah.
And I think they're embracing that. They like that a lot too, but it will be very interesting to see what that dynamic of the crowd is. We've heard there were OU fans, just like the Tulane game for football, that bought season tickets for Texas softball just to be a part.
How much are season tickets for Texas softball?
We've heard it's actually really low.
Like how low? Like for one weekend?
Well,
just to get the tickets for this weekend.
Yes,
is what you're saying. That's incredible.
Just so you can be in Austin for when Patty and the girls come to town.
They do look at that as kind of a little bit of a challenge. I would imagine when you've been on a roll as much as they have been here, over the course of this entirety of what I still consider something of a streak. I know that the win streak isn't up to 80 plus games by now, but they have won basically, 89 of their last 90 or 91 of their last 91. It seems like you have to challenge yourself. You have to keep challenging yourself in a way. You've seen it with Dan Hurley and UConn and all of the, the obstacles or slights that they've had. With the great teams, they find ways to use that as fuel. It seems like this team is doing the same thing. Yeah,
and I think it's just because Texas is so good, so they know they have to bring it. And maybe they had to find it somewhere, like in Lubbock, in Lawrence. You don't need any extra motivation. You know what Atwood can do. You know what Mia Scott can do. They have 4 players batting over 400. They have 58 stolen bases as a team. Like you know how good they are. They have 4 pitchers. They're just as deep as you almost in the circle with not an ERA above 2 runs themselves. So let's bring it. It's 1 versus 4. Should be one heck of a weekend.
Got an ESPN national broadcast too coming up on Saturday.
Saturday night.
Correct. ESPNU Friday, ESPN regular on Saturday, and then follow up on the Longhorn Network on Sunday. So
5:30 Friday, 7 o'clock Saturday, 1 p.m. Sunday.
It's kind of nice. 5:30 Friday. You'd be able to get done, watch some of the women's Final Four.
Caitlin Clark.
Absolutely.
Against Paige.
Baseball, do we have to? I think that'd probably be the way to wrap up what has been a really rough 8-game homestand. Oklahoma ends up losing 6 of the 8 at home. And, you had the conference series where you dropped the doubleheader against West Virginia. You had a really good Lamar team. We talked about them last week coming into Norman, and they end up sweeping Oklahoma. You get back onto the right side of things on Tuesday night with 11-2 win in Wichita. And most simply, Oklahoma got to be the other side of walking batters and what that makes into the pitching situation. So the pitching was not good over the weekend against Lamar. It is interesting that Grant Stevens ends up starting the game on Tuesday night, only throws 2 innings. I think you're going to see him slide into the back end of the rotation this weekend with Bedlam up in Stillwater. The weird thing is, as bad as Oklahoma has played, losing 6 of 8, now I guess it would be 6 of 9 going into Bedlam. You could say they're on a 1-game winning streak if you wanted to be positive about it. They're still in first place in the Big 12, which is kind of wild, and I think that is a credit to what they were able to do in the first 3 series. At 7-2 now, this is a big weekend coming up in Stillwater.
You go, when basketball had the Big 12 SEC challenge, which had that little break, is there a different mentality sometimes when you're in conference play and then you jump out?
I was going to talk to Skip about that when we talked to him on Thursday afternoon, just in terms of kind of where the psyche is with this team. I think that, losing John Spikerman and Carter Frederick, it's not an excuse, but I think it was a gut punch just within the dugout, learning how to get some of these new guys in. Jason Watkins started to come along, but at the same time, The time is now. Like, the next 2 weekends are really, really important with Oklahoma State this weekend and then Kansas State next weekend. You're talking about teams that if you want to stay atop the Big 12, you're going to have to play much better. And, for the pitching-wise, it's just throwing strikes. Defensively, that was kind of the underlying issue over the weekend.
Did not see that coming.
11 errors led to 14 unearned runs. And you can bitch and complain about the pitching, and rightfully so. They weren't good. You're not going to win any games if you give up 14, or win any series if you're going to give up 14 unearned runs within the series. So, offensively, I think that everything's still going pretty well. Jackson Nicholas has been incredible over the last week. I think he's literally been put out 3 different times. He's gotten on base any other time. He has like a 8-game hitting streak, or maybe even more than that. Over the course of the 4-game stretch here, over the last 4, he's had, I think, 15 hits within those games. The guy is maybe one of the hottest hitters in college baseball right now, but that's not going to matter if you can't get any pitching from your starters. So they have their work cut out for them. Obviously, Oklahoma State came into Norman earlier in the non-conference season and beat up on them in Norman, and I think it's going to be really kind of interesting. Should be a really good atmosphere up there as well.
Where are the Cowboys right now? They took 2 of 3. TCU took 2 of 3. West Virginia. Are they starting to make their surge?
It feels like they're starting to play a little bit better baseball, and they're coming off of a 9-0 win on Tuesday over ORU. They had a really good weekend last weekend, and they sit right below Oklahoma in the Big 12 standings. So, I think that they look at this just as much of an opportunity as Oklahoma does. It seems like everything that they have, kind of worked to, they're starting to turn to form and be the team that a lot of people thought they were going to be. So, it should be a really good series. I wouldn't say that, Oklahoma expects to lose any games, but I think realistically, if you can get out of there with a game, that would be great. If you can get out of there with a series win, it would be a successful weekend. So a really successful weekend. It will be interesting to see, some of these guys that are now moving out of the rotation, how they fit them in. And Jamie hit through 2 innings on Tuesday night. Really clean baseball, which I think is a step in the right direction for him. You saw, you haven't seen Brendan Girton come out of the bullpen, but I think that's an option going into this weekend. They added Jason Bowman, the LSU grad transfer, to the mix on Tuesday night. He made his first appearance on a mound in 2 years. And, he ended up giving up a run in the 9th inning, but I think that his stuff looked really good. It was more about getting him acclimated to literally having not pitched for 2 years. So he's back in the fold. And then, I think the highlight of the night was Robert Lambert. He threw a 6-pitch 8th inning and hit 100 a couple times. And if he can just be consistent in finding the strike zone, which I know is kind of a big ask, that's why he hasn't had a whole lot of appearances. I think that they could find something there that they would really like on the back end of games and become a little bit of a stopper. So it's kind of a wait and see kind of mode right now because the bad has been really, really bad. But there are some good wins along that schedule. Obviously, the strength of the schedule is going to help them in the end. So I know Baseball America, we were talking about them last week, having Oklahoma as a regional host at a top 8 national seed. They got bumped down a little bit after you lose 6 of 8, and rightfully so. They were in Dallas Baptist region, ironically enough, with Lamar as well as the 3rd team. And I think that they had UC Santa Barbara. So it's going to be interesting. I think that, the good, you're still in first place going into the weekend. The bad, you're somewhat kind of limping in, having not played your best baseball here over the last couple of weeks.
You mentioned it on the podcast. What's the update, Frederick?
Yeah,
Spikerman?
More good and bad news. I hopefully will clarify this with Skip today, but it sounds like they're going to try to get a medical red shirt for Carter Frederick. Just a freak accident, getting hit in the thumb and breaking it during a batting practice the night before I believe one of their midweek games against Dallas Baptist. So just a really bad deal because obviously he was going to be a contributor. He was going to be a guy who kind of had that breakout series the week before he got hurt down in Fort Worth in a series that they were able to sweep. So that's the bad. The good news is it sounds like John Spikerman's headed in the right direction right now. And he got the splint off the hand, had the hamate bone injury that they had surgery on. He got the splint off, and I think that there's an opportunity for him to be able to pinch run. And, it does sound like that's heading in the right direction and maybe even a little bit more ahead of schedule than they thought at the, right when it happened. So I think that he'll be back in the lineup before too long. To really get into, the field and that kind of stuff, it's probably going to be a little bit of a pain tolerance. So, how much can he really give you? I don't know with a bat in his hand, but I think certainly on the base pass, get his speed back into the lineup. That would be a good thing, and especially in some of these conference games that are probably going to be tight ball games, especially on Friday and Saturday, and opportunities to win. So that's kind of where OU baseball is, 16-12 overall. Real quick, I know this is stickball, so we'll add a little bit of hoops into here. It's been an interesting week for Oklahoma basketball. It's been an interesting week for just really college basketball in general. With the transfer portal, Javian McCollum enters his name. He's now the fourth Sooner to enter his name alongside John Hughley, Otega Owe, and Los Uzon. Just kind of your early read. This is a big kind of couple months or couple weeks for Porter Moser.
It certainly is, and I do feel like it's done. I thought they would fight hard, keep Javion. I'm getting the impression now they sort of knew that wasn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so now from this point on, I believe the staff thinks, okay, those are the four we're losing. Now let's start moving on from here. And the dead period in recruiting for basketball starts today, goes through next Thursday. It's a very interesting 8-day period here of reevaluating where you are in the portal, what guys you need to bring to Norman, and seeing if you can lock up a commitment or two.
Sure.
Especially when you look at Kevin Overton, the wing, basically the Otega replacement.
Right.
Is kind of how he would serve there. Originally, Norman North. Then he went Sunrise, where Buddy was. And then he had his freshman year at Drake, did a fantastic job. Really, the numbers, I didn't know he had that good of a season.
Right.
Until I heard that he had entered the portal. Made his official visit Monday, Tuesday. Did that thing that a lot of fans can't say when you say not the hashtag not committed.
Right.
When you put up your social media.
Just look where I was the last couple of days type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe they can close that deal here in the next week or so before the visits start back up. And then Sean Padula, the guard, formerly of Edmond Memorial and Virginia Tech. Creighton is a team that's obviously going to be one to watch there, but I just feel like OU's got to keep these two home. They've got 5 scholarships to work with, but you've got, in their heart of hearts, they have to believe they have just 3 because 2 of them are locked up.
It's must hits. It's must hits, and especially considering their connections back to the state of Oklahoma. I don't think it's crazy to say, even though that it feels like there has been an exodus, that you have great opportunity to improve the roster. There are a lot of really, really good players, and ironically enough, that have connections back to Oklahoma that could step in and be contributors from day one and be a nice blend with the guys that are returning.
You hate to lose both of your starting guards, but if there's one position you can lose in the portal, it's guard. You're going to find guards.
Sure.
It's kind of like wide receiver in football. You're going to find portal receivers. That's never, ever an issue. It's just about making sure you can get to that next level. Find that guy that gets you a couple more baskets and gets you that one more win that everyone was searching for this last year. It's the bigs where it's just going to be a struggle.
Is Johan Traore an option? I know that he visited a year ago. He's back into the portal from UC Santa Barbara.
I got to think no, just because his thing was with Los.
Right.
They had that tight bond with Los, and I don't see that being a thing. But, I think you got to at least maybe gauge where it's at. He had a nice season. Maybe at his size, going to UC Santa Barbara, 5 rebounds scares you a bit because you're going to need to do a heck of a lot more than that when you get to the SEC. But you're going to have to find a couple bigs. I think they knew that the Hughley experiment didn't really work out.
Sure.
It's fine. It happens. But now you've got to find someone that's even better than John. It's not a knock on Sam Godwin, but you want Godwin to be like an energy guy coming off the bench. So you've got to find that starting big.
I think Oklahoma State fans have been reminded of this. Just because a guy enters the portal doesn't necessarily mean he can't come back to school. Any chance with any 4 of the guys that they would revisit, or is it basically kind of a shake your hand, thank you for the service, and good luck in the portal? It's
a good question as to how Porter treats those situations.
Right.
And
each one, I'm sure, is different unto itself.
Exactly. It's weird because just feeling the connection he had with Los and Otega, and somebody even brought up to us. Remember, he was talking about, like, I remember sitting there Monday, the day after Selection Sunday, talking to Otega and Los,
right,
and like, how the heck are we going to get here?
Yeah.
And it's like he thought maybe initially those guys were returning. It's like, now let's do it again. And it's like, they're not there. Is that a big problem? Do you keep the lines of communication open. Los hit. I don't know if anyone's. Los officially hit the portal like at midnight, late last night. So he's officially in. I think Javion was the same way there, but at this point, I don't think anyone comes back. We did see someone at Texas Tech just do that right before we got on here, but you've got 5 scholarships to work with, and they're in on so many elite guys. So Porter Moser's message is still being heard.
Right.
There might be some fans that have tuned him out.
Oh yeah.
But some of these targets are really listening. But it's one thing to be in their top 4, top 6. It's another thing, obviously, to be the choice. And that's what the next 2-3 weeks are about. Closing the deal, getting those commitments, having that roster set that you feel confident in for next season.
Really, really important for the longevity of the program. And, certainly here in the short term or the interim, really, really important for Porter Moser, because I think that, you look at the 4th year under him, and what they haven't been able to do is get to the NCAA tournament, and with everything and all the changes that are coming, it's crucial. It's crucial. His job might be on the line in terms of what he's able to get and what he's able to put back onto this roster. That's kind of the most simple way to say it. Are we going to be covering OU basketball games in Mustang, Oklahoma here moving forward? Choctaw, is somebody from Blanchard going to make a bid on the arena? Would you just real quick? We talked about it on the Unofficial 40. The comments that were in the OU Daily this week from OU President Joe Harroz. They're not going to be soliciting other areas.
Little posturing
it is
there.
Interesting, though. We got the vote coming up on the Norman City Council. What would that be? April 11th, I believe, next week.
Next week, yeah. And a lot of, early returns are saying this will pass.
Sure.
It's actually not something that they're really worried won't go down this time around. But yeah, those comments, maybe after a great giving day, just kind of feeling himself a bit.
Yeah, it was interesting to say the least. So big weekend coming up here for softball and baseball. Obviously, it's there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on it. So, certainly from the baseball side, they better play well. The natives get restless, as they say. For Bob Przybylo, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We will see you right back here next week for a Stickball report on the SoonersGroup.com YouTube channel.